Okay, so in my last dust collection video where I walked through how to set up all the plumbing and everything, that a lot of people had a lot of really great ideas. And I think those ideas should be tested because any simple little thing that helps dust collection, why not? And the crazy thing about dust collection, a lot of it is just hearsay. So let's prove some of it. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to test is this, the dust stopper. Because if you have one of these, you know it just sits on top of the bucket. There's like two little crappy clips on the side that barely work. And you could swivel it around, it actually moves up and down. It doesn't work very good. Now the manufacturer says, don't worry about it. It's perfectly fine. It's supposed to work that way because when you turn the vacuum on, the suction holds it down to the bucket. So I did try to tape it, but a lot of these buckets have these ridges on here and it's full of dust. Tape doesn't really hold to it that well. So I decided to try something a little bit better. I spent 17 bucks and got one of these. It's a lid clamp. And what that's going to allow me to do is actually put it on here, clamp this down extremely tight. But now with that, I did have to modify this a little bit. I did have to cut the lip off, but the inside still is exactly the same. I just cut the outer lip off. So now what we're going to do is test this using the same hose, same bucket, same vacuum, same everything. So we already established that the air intake at the source is around 15 meters per second. Now let's hook up the dust collector, see where it's at. The dust collector is fully empty as well. Now also, just like last time, the bucket is completely empty and clean. I have a brand new filter in the vacuum, so everything is going to be exactly the same. And 9 meters per second is the number that we're shooting for. Again, this remote, what a game changer. Love it. And there you go. It was a significant difference having this thing actually clamp down. It may not seem like that much, it's only 1 meter per second, but that is actually quite a bit. And since you kind of have to have one of these just to save your filters and save hundreds of dollars on filters, it's a good investment. And the ring only cost 17 bucks on Amazon, not too shabby. But let me show you how I did it real quick. Okay, so modding this thing is actually super easy. So on the bottom of it, there's gonna be a little screw and two little clips in here. Leave them alone. You can leave this actually on here while you do this. The only thing you're gonna need to do is cut along the top of the lip. You're gonna cut about maybe 1/8 of an inch into the lip because if you just cut along the bottom of it, it's still too big to fit on the bucket with the clamp. So you're actually gonna have to go into the top of it just by about 1/8 of an inch. And then cut all the way around it. You're gonna cut the clips off, you're gonna cut all that stuff off, you don't want it. Now you can cut it off any way you want. I use the bandsaw, I'm sure you can use a jigsaw, you can use a handsaw, use whatever works best for you. But just cut about 1/8 inch in on the top of the lip, go all the way around, then it fits right on top of the bucket perfectly. And then just put your clamp on there. Simple as that. Now if you're like me, you've never actually used one of these. This is the first time I ever used one. And for the life of me, I could not figure out how to get this thing to fit on the bucket. I know there's a lot of people out there probably just laughing at me about how stupid I am, but I've never used one. It took me a while to figure out this actually goes back further, which opens up the ring more. Then it goes over the bucket. Yeah, it took me a while to figure that one out. Never said I was that smart. Next thing I want to test is buckets. Does size matter? We'll find out. Now the dust stopper always gives directions for a 5-gallon bucket, but I usually use a 6-gallon bucket just because I have a million of these 6-gallon buckets lying around. But I also have a 7-gallon bucket. So I want to test it with this 5, 6, and 7-gallon bucket and see if there's actually a difference. Okay, so the first one up is a 5-gallon bucket. We're using this exact same 20-foot hose, same everything else. And remember, the 6-gallon bucket, we hit about 10.1, I think was about the max. So let's see if it gets above that. Well, the 5-gallon bucket was average around 9.5. So let's go ahead and test the 7-gallon bucket now. Okay, 7-gallon bucket. That was pretty much average with the 6-gallon bucket. So it's looking like bigger is better. Crap. Okay, so with the dust stopper, you need to actually have it sealed to the bucket for it to perform at its best. But now if you notice, dust stopper actually came out with a second version which addressed all the problems that they originally said they never had. It actually has manual clips on the side of it, along with a rubber gasket that goes around the inside of it, which will make a tight seal. So basically they fixed all the problems that they denied that they ever had. But they also increased the price by about $20 a unit. Now if you don't have some kind of dust separation system yet and you are on the market for looking at them, there's a lot cheaper options out there than the new dust stopper, but it does work pretty well. But it is a hefty price point. But now if you still have the old version, don't go out and buy the new one. Just spend 17 bucks on one of those clamps and just stick it on there. It's perfect. All right, now bucket size. Yeah, that's pretty disappointing. The 6-gallon and the 7 gallons pretty much performed exactly the same. The 5-gallon, I don't know why, just was not having the same kind of pressure. It almost had the less pressure than the original time when the dust stopper wasn't even connected to the bucket. So if you're at home right now and you're using a 5-gallon bucket, get a bigger bucket, it's going to perform a little bit better. All right, so the next thing that we're going to test are the blast gates. There was a lot of people saying I put the blast gates in the wrong spot. There were people saying that the blast gates need to be as close to the equipment as possible. And they were saying it for two different reasons. One is convenience, and two, for performance. Now the convenience thing, I kind of get, but all of my equipment is right here. If you have your equipment kind of like scattered all over the place, yeah, I would say it'd probably be a little bit more convenient to have it at the machine. But now for the performance part, I'm not really 100% sure about that. So now there's basically two options you can do. You can do as close to the source of the vacuum as possible, or you can do as close to the machine as possible. And they both have arguments about why you should do one or the other. And I did do a little bit of research on this, trying to figure out, is it better to have the blast gate close to the machine or close to the vacuum? And I didn't really find anything that was like actual testing. It was just a lot of hearsay and opinion based. And let me tell you the main arguments of them. So here it is. Let's say you have line A, B, and C. All are hooked up to your dust collection system and your dust separator. And all of these are hooked up to machines about 10 feet away. And all of them have blast gates down at the end near the machines. Now let's say you're using equipment C and blast gates A and B are closed. The second you turn on your shop vac, lines A and B, which are closed, a vacuum will be created in both these lines, all the way down the pipe. Line C will be open, and it's going to be just sucking the sawdust all the way through. Now the argument is, if you have your blast gates all the way down near your equipment and far away from your shop vac, when a vacuum is created in both these closed off lines, the shop vac will actually have to work harder to maintain the vacuum in these two lines to allow this one to be open, which means the one that is open is losing efficiency because the shop vac is working so hard to maintain the vacuum in these two long lines. But now on the other side, people say when the vacuum is created in these two lines, it takes such little energy for the shop vac to maintain the vacuum that it's not going to affect your open line. So the people who say the blast gates need to be as close to your vacuum as possible, they're saying that because you don't want to try to maintain the vacuum in these two long lines. So that's why there's an argument, should you have the blast gates all the way down near your equipment for efficiency, or should you have it all the way towards your vacuum for efficiency? Now, to be honest with you, I think both of those sound like sound arguments. But for efficiency, which one's actually better? Is it better to have the blast gates all the way down there, or is it better to have it closer? Let's test it. Okay, so the first test we're going to do is basically a control. This is one single open line connected straight to a dust separator. Now, I want to use a dust separator because most people have one of those in their shop, and I want to kind of make this more realistic so everyone out there who has kind of like this setup knows exactly what's going on. Okay, so as you saw, it was sitting around a 10.9 steady, sometimes into a low 11, but around a 10.9 steady. Now let's hook up the other 3 lines and start testing some stuff. Okay, so this is how I have it set up. So line A and line B are going to be closed, and I have caps on them to represent closed blast gates. Line C, this one down here, is going to be open, and that's the one we're going to be testing. Now this test is to see if the blast gates all the way down by the equipment far away from the actual vacuum makes a difference. So it didn't really make that much of a difference, maybe a half a meter per second. Now let's test it if the blast gates were all the way down there near the vacuum by taking these 2 lines off, putting caps all the way down there. Okay, so now I closed off line A and line B all the way down near the dust separator, which is going to represent having your blast gates really close to your shop vac, which also represents eliminating the need to hold a 10-foot long vacuum in 2 different lines, which is basically the equivalent of holding a 20-foot vacuum. Absolutely no difference. They were both around 10.5, which means your shop vac is not losing any efficiency by holding vacuums in different lines. But now, what if your 3 lines were different lengths? What if one piece of equipment was on this line, line C, and the other pieces of equipment were double the length away? Will the increased vacuum make a difference? Let's test it. Now also, I did tape off the connection points right here just to make sure there's no air leaks, because I want this to be a test on efficiency of length of vacuum. No, not at all. But now, just for testing purposes, let's test line B with line A capped and line C capped. So as if you're using a machine way down here. No, nothing makes a difference. So this just proves, put your blast gates wherever you want them. If it's more efficient for you to have them closer to the machine, put them there. If it's more efficient for you to have them closer to the vacuum, put them there. It doesn't make a difference. Now the next thing are the corners. People were saying I messed up because I put a 90 instead of a 45. Now, if that's because of clogging and I have a higher chance of getting a clog on a 90-degree angle than a 45, I completely agree. And if I ever do get a clog on a 90, I'm going to switch it out for a 45. But then some people are saying I'm losing a lot of efficiency because the air going around a 90-degree angle is completely killing the flow. Now, it sounds logical, but let's go ahead and test it. So this is the first setup. I have a 10-foot pipe coming down to a 90-degree coming up. Now remember, this was the wind speed of just a straight pipe coming right off the dust separator. So that's the number we have to match. Nope, no difference. Okay, so I already know what you're thinking. Ben, 190 does not make a very accurate test. And I hear you. I get it. I understand. So what about this monstrosity? So from here, we got a 90, a 90, a 90, a 90, a 90, a 45, 45, 45, 45, to the end. So if this thing doesn't settle the argument, do degree of angles make a difference? I don't know what will. Nope. Nah, no difference. And I genuinely thought that was going to make a huge difference. Nothing. Okay, one more thing I want to talk about, and that's static electricity. A couple of people asked about, is there a bigger static buildup on the PVC pipes? And my answer to that is no. I actually saw more buildup on the crinkle tubes than I do the PVC pipes. And that leads into the whole conversation of, is your shop going to blow up because of static electricity within the PVC pipe? That's an urban legend. There has never been one documented case of a shop blowing up because of static electricity. Never. Go look for yourself. None. The second you start looking it up, you're actually going to see more things going against it, saying it's not a real thing, then actually it is a real thing. It used to be an idea way back in the day before a lot of tests started happening, but the more research that went into it is proving complete crap. The best research paper that was written on it was by Dr. Cole. So I'll leave a link down below to a short summary of his entire paper. But if you just look up his entire paper, it's very extensive, proving it's not a real thing. He goes into very great detail about a small shop is never, ever going to produce enough particle flow to build up enough electricity to cause an actual explosion. But if you want to ground your pipes and ground your dust collection system, feel absolutely free. It's a peace of mind for yourself. Go for it. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not going to do it because I'm not worried about it. And hey, if I'm wrong and I blow up, well then there we go. We have our first case. But as always, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you want to leave a comment, a like, please subscribe. It really does mean a lot to me. And I will see everyone next time.